Awesome. Thank you, YMS, for having us. My name's Bob. I'm from Social Bakers. Been over with the company now about 6 years, working with partners like the NFL, Estee, Lauder. We've got Anheuser-Busch, really helping brands to understand their performance across social media. I'm going to do a little pass around. We're going to get this thing going today and have a little bit of fun. I know it's been pretty crappy weather, rainy over here in New York, and just want to kind of get this rolling. So I'm going to pass it around. We're going to do just a quick 20-second intro on each of us, who we are, share a little bit about that, and then we'll jump directly into some of the questions that I've got for you guys. So I'm going to just pass it to Cyndi. I've got you here first on my left, so I'll pass to you, and then we'll go around the group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cyndi Pierre. I am the social media director at American Eagle. I've been at the company for close to 2 years. I'm really excited to talk all things social media and getting it right today. I'll pass it over to Haile.
Hi, I'm Haile Thomas. I am also in New York, and I am a wellness and compassion activist, speaker, author, and the CEO and co-founder of the Happy Organization, which is a youth wellness organization. And we've been definitely using social and online platforms this year to work on our initiatives. So it's great to be able to provide this perspective today. Pass this on to Joy.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Joy Ofodu. Born and raised in the Bay Area, so I'm on the West Coast here. I am passionate about empowering on and offline communities, particularly Black people and girls. And I'm at Instagram as an associate brand marketing manager. Fun fact about me, I almost never wear matching socks, but I am today. So maybe this panel will go right. Kicking it over to Stefan.
Hey, Stefan here, originally from Europe, gay immigrant in the US, styling in from LA. Having had a chance to work on quite a few social platforms, including YouTube, early Musical.ly, and TikTok and Cameo, where I was leading marketing for the last two before I built my own company now with an ex-Snapchat person in the social music space.
I love it. So many good people on the panel today. I know we've got at least 45 people here just kind of sitting in and listening. So great to have you guys. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to kick off. We've got a question to kind of start for everybody. I want to dig in a little bit about some of the common faux pas that we're seeing from brands trying to market to young people on social media. I'd love to kind of get our thoughts on that and at least kick the conversations off there. I'm going to toss it up. Whoever wants to jump in and start will go, and then we'll kind of just round robin from there.
Hi, everybody. Just want to kind of take that question. Obviously, at American Eagle, we are pretty Gen Z centric. So some of the things that we try to look out for as a brand is really ensuring that we don't seem tone deaf. So ensuring that there's a level of transparency there that I think is really important for the Gen Z community, and ultimately, I think for the consumer nowadays as a whole. So really ensuring that there's a bit of a human touch to the brand. And I think one of the things that people often find difficulty with is actually owning up to when you make a mistake. That I think is really important for a lot of consumers, especially Gen Z. So I think it's really helping brands and executives kind of take the reins and again, show a bit of that vulnerability to build that connection with the market.
Cool. I'll jump in and build on that. I feel like brands are holding up the same 5 to 10 influencers, especially when it comes to diversity. So if you think Black, if you think young, gay, whatever, they're picking the same folks, just hoping that it will resonate. And I think it takes more than like a one size fits all, let's just throw this person, a couple 100,000. I think really strategic and thoughtful partnerships, as well as, community inspiring conversations and activations that make people, want to assemble and stay on that platform. For us, I think about platforms. That is what I think is more impactful than just kind of going for the same faces and hoping to get different results.
Yeah, Joy, I'd love to second that. As a member of Gen Z myself, I think that honestly, depth and representation, as you mentioned, is so important. I think that having brands that feel relatable without almost, co-opting our trends and memes and just exaggerating them to the fullest is really important. There's this kind of organic balance in getting to know Gen Z, our, lighthearted sides, but also these sides of us that demand purpose and intentionality. And so really having brands that are rooted in both that ability to be silly and kind of play into current trends, but also be able to be really meaningful and thoughtful in representation, especially in the wellness space. I think that's a huge area that can really expand, is figuring out how that can feel more, approachable for young people. And so I think those things are definitely super attractive.
Yeah, I think authenticity is really important. And I think, as we heard before, just doing partnerships with 1, 2, 3 people is not really helpful. I think also in terms of performance, you see more and more, the more authentic you are, the better it performs. If you're partnering up with tens and hundreds of people from a certain kind that you want to support and you want to associate your brand with, I think it makes much more sense. And I think with YouTube, people were learning how to adapt the TV language to YouTube. And I think something similar is happening right now to the mobile video format of, like, even YouTube got too professional now, and like really like having a very raw and very real experience like you see on social media in general, I think is important also in communicating with that audience.
Yeah. Well, I think tracking and understanding what is and isn't working is something we've been working on with so many of our brands and our partners, that I think people were doubling down. And really now, when we're all spending so much time during this pandemic doing Zooms and doing lives and everything else, I find that so many of the partners that we're working with are trying to figure out, like, what is working, what's engaging that young kind of demo that they're going after, and how are they going to continue to drive them now when some of us have lost attention. I've stopped seeing a million lives popping up on my phone every 5 seconds when I'm signing in and checking things out. So it's always evolving, which I think is really kind of interesting too. Joy, I'll throw one to you, kind of building on that increasing competition, right? So especially within the social space, right? What's your strategy to make sure Instagram is the #1 platform that where young people are really kind of coming to create and share that content or build their following, as you were kind of starting to talk about a little bit on that last one?
Yeah, I think one thing is cultural. So we recognize that we have a super global platform, and when it comes to our social, like a wide fat majority of our audience is coming from outside the United States. So we recognize that Instagram really is global, and we have to have localized content, activations, cultural moments that resonate with people. So that's something that we think about no matter what we're creating. But I think the two kind of approaches that we take are ensuring that young users, especially, they feel that Instagram is a place where they have the tools that they need to express themselves. And then secondly, that it's a platform that brings them closer to the people that they care about. So, I mean, you've seen a lot of iterations of our product, our stories product, which is super engaging and is, given way to messaging, as well as integrating with Facebook a bit more, and just kind of expanding and exploring, what is your social graph and how do you want to get in contact with the people you care about? And then finally, the tools, like we're always iterating. It was great to see kind of Reels jump out and all the colorful activity that's happening there. We want them to feel like it's a place for short form video, for long form, for whatever sort of method or means that they want to express themselves. So iteration on tools is super important to us also.
Interesting. Yeah, I love the Reels. I've been really kind of trying, I think, now to spend more time and figure out how now, especially brands are going to be activating against them. I think it's just so kind of fresh and interesting for that, for sure. I kind of leave kind of Stefan, right? And obviously with TikTok, Cameo, now Musically, right? Like all the factors that really make these apps resonate with Gen Z, and I think kind of are almost building on some of those things that Joy was just talking about in that competitive space. How are you kind of building on that, and what are those factors that are making them resonate today?
I think it always starts with an insight, right? You really want to identify like what is something that people still need, and that changes with the times. Also changes every few years now. I think it's going to change in a big way again now with COVID and everybody being at home, right? We're thinking a lot about like it was the decade of like doing stuff for others and showing off and faking things on many platforms. And I think we're entering with the 2020s more a time where like it's more real. You cannot go out and fake your life that much. So you have to somehow not just wait for others to like validate yourself, but maybe make yourself happy. And I think we might see some innovation coming out and social media changing overall in the 2020s in that direction, that it's more about, okay, how can you be creative? Like what can you do for yourself to make yourself happy? And we see a lot of creativity, I think, happening right now already, where people do like even like simple things like baking and DIY projects around the house. But I think there's a very, very strong need to create more. And I think that has started with photos and videos and might go into many more like creative disciplines. But yeah.
I like that. Well, now it's like, how many different ways can I show you that I'm having fun in my apartment and or around it, since that's the only place I go now. So, you know, trying to work on getting out there a little bit more. But Cyndi, I had one for you. I was thinking about, obviously, American Eagle and what they're doing with young people as the forefront for its campaigns. What impact would you say this had on social media engagement, even just brand advocacy overall amongst Gen Z?
I think one of the things that has been really core to the company, as you mentioned, is really ensuring that we are telling the youth story through the youth voice. So instead of kind of dictating that story, we're really co-collaborating with our talent, who are, you know, represent the real kid. I think what's really interesting about what Stefan said is, you know, with COVID and that, again, that pivot from kind of faking your life and just being more authentic, that's something that we had been doing via UGC, user generated content, for some time.
Yeah.
And it's something that we leaned into with COVID, and really ensuring to really ask Gen Z how they were feeling, what they were doing, and really, instead of even editing, really posting those types of responses on our social media, and people were relating to that. So definitely some upticks in engagement, DMs, people actually saying, thank you for sharing this, thank you for speaking about
cool.
this. I think
Yeah.
is really great, because that really shows that you're not just talking to a vacuum, people are actually listening to you. And that's such an important thing, especially as a brand, because we understand that
Yeah.
people are really listening to their friends and their family first and foremost. So to kind of get that feedback as a brand is really great.
I find it sounds so simple to say, but just engaging with your audience and being able to be real and have that conversation and be conversational using their, you know, pictures or posts or things like that. I mean, I just find, I look at authenticity overall, that I think so many brands have a hard time just, how do I get in or how do I not? And all of us now also wanting to hear more from our brands that we do follow. What are you thinking? How are you driving this message? Do I want to be aligned with you or not? Right. So I do think that those are the things that we're continuing to try to push brands that we're working with also, to maybe make sure that they are kind of taking those steps to engage in those instances. And Haile, I'll kind of bring this next one to you because I think it kind of hits right down this. So on that note, social media has really been kind of criticized, right, around its negative influence on younger people, right? But it's also playing a crucial role in, I think, keeping them connected as well during the lockdown, right? Since we're not able to maybe see each other live. Can you share some examples or ways that you've seen maybe brands or creators kind of creating and spreading kind of positivity around this time that you've been maybe noticing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been so amazing and powerful, as we all mentioned, to really see this authenticity stepping through and for that to be valued. And even seeing how, you know, in the past, maybe brands would kind of set the narrative and the tone, but now it's the consumer and the users of these platforms who are really setting the tone for what's trending and what's needed and what's demanded of brands. And so to see this positivity and this kind of social justice inclusion now within the narrative of brands and within the conversations happening is amazing. And I've been really happy to even just see content regarding, you know, how can can I keep, our consumers or, fans and followers engaged and feeling uplifted during these times? One of my favorite sustainable clothing brands, Vuori Clothing, they have an entire like live series that they do called The Rise, The Shine, and they just talk with inspiring people of all ages all over the world. And through that series, they're reaching people on a deeper level, and I absolutely love that. And it's kind of this like
Cool.
reintegration of their own brand values into the conversations that they're having, and I think that's super special. And then of course there's also been this kind of switch in the narrative of like influencers and what is expected, right? And so I've been really grateful to see my peers who have acted as traditional influencers really stepping up and sharing their genuine opinions and outlooks, and being one of many points of activation for our generation. So some of my favorites have been people like Maya's Ideas on Instagram, Astronaut Starbright. Those are all pages that I love following because it's super justice and community oriented and really pushing people into action. But then there's also pages that just share like inspiration and uplifting moments that feel so relevant to me. So I love Yasmin Cheyenne and Morgan Harper Nichols as well. So I think there's a lot of options out there now, and it's great to see that narrative changing.
That's interesting. And I think, as we're all working to figure out whether it's connecting, how are we going to drive to that consumer, right? Or fan or friend, right? On these instances. And I think today, right, especially with the way that the model has kind of changed, I look at whether it's customer care, connecting, right, being something that is a big emphasis for everybody going forward. I'll kind of poise this out. I don't know if anybody wants to jump specifically, but maybe the big thing that social media is adding for you all as far as like customer experience, because I do think that's where this world is really kind of moving. It's less care and customer kind of like day to day and more experience right around that. So Stefan, I see you nodding. I don't know if there's something you want to jump in on that, or anybody else wants to hop in as well.
Yeah, maybe just I think one thing I really love, I think, is the really like evolution of like just having, in terms of customer experience, like a lot of messengers at hand. I think Facebook is doing a great job of like offering with the messenger like tools like ManyChat, and where you can really like intercom, connect with the users, whatever platform you have, and really understand and be there and speak in a different medium. I think for younger people, like email as a customer success form is like getting more and more alienating. And so having like a very natural experience like in a messenger, I think is something really exciting to have.
I think care is manifold. Sorry, Cyndi, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple different like facets of care, and one is just feeling safe, right, while you're using and interacting with that platform. And I think right now, because the national conversation is so much centered around social justice, equality, like making sure that we're building equitable platforms, products, services, and experiences, that's where people are coming. They're saying, as I step into this as a Black person, as a young person, or as a queer person, whatever their identities are, is this experience like equitable for me? So that's an area that, I personally as an employee am very excited to like push within my company and different organizations that I connect with, is just having that kind of balance, because I think that is a big part of the experience. Another, though, I think is like actually social currency. So we interact with brands, right, because they're helping us aspire to be kind of cool and give us something to talk about with our friends and show off. And funny enough, I just feel like the pandemic has hit us, it's hit all major tent poles. So like the big award shows, the big games, et cetera, that we used to gather around are very much disappearing. So how else can we as brands provide social currency to the people that are interacting with our products and services, and give them something to commune over and discuss?
That's cool.
I think
go ahead.
I think to add to that, I think, people think about customer care, sometimes it's just complaining, but there is this opportunity of using the voices coming off of social media to really power an evolution of a product, or really even impact some business decisions. So I think that's something that we've done, particularly via stories, which really just really engaging and asking for feedback from our audience. And it's been really, really exciting. I know for us, we did kind of a limited edition pair of jeans that went, the sales went to benefit LGBTQ plus organization. And we kind of opened it up to see, we kind of noticed some comments happening where people were just saying, hey, we should have these jeans all the time, and all of these kind of, again, these ongoing conversations. And so we decided to, okay, since this conversation's happening, let's open it up and learn a little bit more about how they're feeling about the product and our approach. And let's do that via stories. So that's something that,
Cool.
as a whole, I think I would implore brands to, people want to give you their feedback. People also are following you because they want you to win. So help them help you win. And include, I know we're always a little bit, I think brands are afraid of feedback, but I think there are really some exciting ways to use different platforms to get that feedback and ensure that your audience feels heard when they're speaking
Cool.
up. So I think that's a different way to kind of think about, or an additional way to think about customer care.
I like that. I actually had a kind of an interesting question pop up from the audience and the attendees, I should say. I'm like, this is weird not having actual people, but can't see anybody. But question I thought was kind of interesting. Everybody kind of touched on it in a different sense of kindness overall. So the question was, would you be able to share influencers or somebody that you admire, or a brand that is really kind of right now associated with something that's interesting to you, or that kindness kind of that everybody's been talking about? I know Haile obviously had dropped a few in there, but any further, that was a question from our audience that was here.
I really like what Chipotle, Guess, and NBA did back in early TikTok days. I think they were really innovative and really taking like products that are maybe not meant for social and like putting it in a very fun way. I think like even like fast food chains like Wendy's have been doing that already, like on Twitter and Instagram for a long time. So I think we're seeing more and more like, I think where these like tentpole events are falling away, and you actually had to spend a lot of dollars to be part of those. There's so many little things that are popping up every single week. As long as you have a great social team or a person who's like actually like in the now and understands what's going on, a brand has so many opportunities to jump on these trends that are like weekly ongoing and just getting more and more. And you can get a lot of share of voice actually through these. And I think what all these companies did, I think the NBA, for example, did not put the players in front and center, but they put the fans front and center. That was about reactions and experience and like just showing regular people. And I think sometimes not acting as a brand, but acting as a normal person, I think is really important. Like I think 2 years ago, I went in Cannes, I was talking about like ugly cells with an agency I was working with, where we purposefully, like all the creators, we like even for TikTok proper that we were, when we first launched, we created were not like, and no creative director would have approved them ever. But it's not about like just making the best perfect brand video, but it's like, okay, trying to connect and making real content. And I think that's like something a lot of brands maybe still shy away from, to like make it very UGC in the content and don't think about like very high quality premium content. But I think in the end, it's like, okay, what is connecting? And the more closer, more similar it looks like to what people are posting, I think the more real it feels.
Well, I want to point people in an interesting direction. I think you have your traditional, like very kind influencers, and even like, you know, our brand used to do a lot in this space. Folks who are encouraging you to like, you know, self-actualize, like Dante Colley, or just breathe and take a minute, like Haile. She'll be out in the woods, like, everyone, I hope you breathe, hope you have a nice day. So she's super kind to follow. But I think there's two new directions to go in and think about as brands when you're partnering. One is that like Gen Z is very much, and I'm a member of this generation, so I don't know, I think we're trending more towards like actual raw, vulnerable snark a little bit, and like that's where we find our humor. So it's realness, it's raw, it's cutting edge. It's not always nice, it's not always respectable, and it's not always kind. But the kind thing to do is to be honest. So just thinking through who are some of those real voices, uncut, untamed. I really love Sage Flocka, who we partnered with recently. So just some of those, like, I'm just going to give it to you straight kind of influencers are cool to think about. And then another direction is meme aggregators. So we're very much seeing that these are like the biggest accounts and interests for young people on Instagram. So thinking about not partnering with individuals, but actually these aggregators where people are finding a lot of humor and they're resharing a lot of content. and think about how you can just partner with, organizations or teams of memers instead of individual influencers. I think you might find a lot of value there too.
I'd like to maybe even kick it out to, we've got about 5 here. So emerging social platforms, any that we should be paying attention to heading into the end of Q4 next year, 2021. I'd love to kind of kick that out. Cyndi, you want to kick on? I don't know if you want to jump in and say, I know I'm just trying to pass it around here. Sorry.
No worries. No offense to Instagram. I'm still on TikTok right now. So yeah, I've just been really floored by the creativity that the audience has been able to really foster. I think even the political conversations, having 15-second bites, I was actually very when I first heard about it, I was a little troubled. I was like, oh no, how are we going to get political conversation in 15 seconds? And to see how much amazing content that the generation is putting out there, it's so creative. I've loved it. So I still rabbit hole on TikTok at the moment. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Sorry, Instagram, I love you too.
What? None taken. There's enough for everybody. They doing their thing. We're doing our thing. I know Stefan must have thoughts on that. The platform I'm going to call out that is emerging that I love right now is Clubhouse. If you're familiar with it, it's in beta. It is like an audio chat room kind of app, giving you house party vibes, giving you podcast/conference vibes, where people are able to spin up their own rooms. And it's been joined by a lot of folks in the music industry as well as tech. I started a room with some friends just joking and providing some tips on like algorithm, and Meek Mill hopped in the room and the president of TDE hopped in the room. So it's kind of this random spontaneous thing, and Clubhouse I think is really going to take off next year. Stefan, you feeling TikTok, Instagram, where are you at?
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot of happening with the pandemic right now. There's quite a few companies I think are just starting up and trying to do new things and trying to capture new behaviors as they're shaping out right now, which I'm very excited about. Of course, I'm excited about our own company, Make, that we're building right now. But there's also like cool messengers like Muse, built out of New York, that I love. Scout, another platform out of San Francisco. I think there's quite a bit happening also on like just Pinata Farms, another one in LA, and Trash. So there's quite a few new apps actually like that are trying it. And I think there's a lot of innovation still happening both on Instagram and on TikTok right now. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see where it's gonna go next. But I think we're going to see only more user-generated content, not less. And I think also the sad ending of COVID this week showed that people on the phone want user-generated content, and so brands should really, and I think it's not about premium anymore, it's about raw and real.
Yeah, I would add, I think that one platform that I've really been eyeing is actually pretty new. It's called Connectful, and it's basically a space for young people to network, to find friends, mentors, opportunities to collaborate, influencers, things like that. I think it's really cool because it's from that youth perspective. It's generated through that, and so I'm excited to explore it more and see how it grows in the future. But also, kind of contrary to the point of this entire panel, I think that a lot of people are also seeking ways to stay connected to community without fully having to have an entirely virtual experience. So part of my own journey through social media during this time where I think we're on our phones more than ever, I've actually had to figure out like balance. And I think a lot of people are seeking that balance as well, because as amazing it is for connecting, it can also be a tool for overwhelm. So I think that's something to look out for in the future, is how to also encourage users to take time for themselves, to fuel the things that are happening in their actual, in real life lives, and how to then integrate what they learn from that time away into their social media communities.
Cool, I love that. We are heading here into the back end, and I would love to obviously just push pause here. I'm going to do about 30 seconds with each of you. I'm going to go around and kind of kick this. So what I was thinking is favorite follow or favorite podcast, and just how you want to leave your last message to the folks that joined us virtually here today. I'll pass it around, and then I'll do mine at the end as kind of the last piece, if that's cool. I'll let you go first, Cyndi. You're off mute, so I'm going to pass it to you.
I'm a big podcast fiend, so I really listen to Endless Thread and Reply All. That's been my go-to podcast. And I guess my last message to all of the marketers out there is, again, be vulnerable, be human, and don't talk at your audience, have a conversation with them. And I think that's what's going to help the brand really connect with this demo. So, yep.
A podcast that I love is How I Built This, and it talks a lot about like how new companies are rising, which is very relevant to me at the moment. But I think for anyone who tries to create and is baking bread right now or doing DIY projects, I think thinking about like, okay, how can we get more people out of very passive consumption into active creation and really getting that dopamine out to like make yourself happy, I think would be a great thing for the world overall. So yeah, with those words, like find a new virtual or like an actual hobby. I think that's going to be a good thing for the next year.
I would say that my favorite podcast at the moment is The UV Effect, hosted by Gabrielle Jordan. It talks about finding our unique value, and I think that that's really something that's so important this year, is to dive into introspection. And so it's great to like listen to these case studies that she does, highlighting different people of all ages, and it's really great. It's hosted by a young woman in Gen Z, so it's a really great, refreshing thing to give you hope for the future and just think of ways to work on self-improvement. But I think overall, yeah, really just feeding into that community this year and ensuring that there's a certain transparency and relation to what's happening in the world is so important moving forward for brands.
Cool. I'm a big fan of Opportunity Unknown, which is like two women job hunting during this pandemic, and to see how that spun out, as well as Okay Now Listen from Scotty Beam and Sylvia Obell on Netflix, or Netflix's Spotify accounts and whatnot. I think they just have some great branded offerings for underrepresented people. The message I'll leave you with is just don't be afraid to use your platform, your bottom line, to empower Black creators during this time.
Awesome. My last share here, the one that I just binged through and crushed, was an oral history of The Office. I don't know if you guys have listened to this one yet, but it's with Kevin from The Office, whose voice just, I think, still kills me whenever I hear him talking. So that was the last one that I did. And I think we were talking about it before the panel. I've been just dying over the Quentin Quarantino. You mentioned the meme generators and things that I'm just like absolutely crushing it for me. But I wanted to say thank you. The last thing I'll leave you with, Social Bakers, we're working with a ton of brands. I appreciate everybody joining today. We've actually got our Social Bakers Engage conference coming up. It's November 18th to the 20th. We'll be doing it virtually as well. We'll share some stuff around. Follow us, follow me at Bob Gearing, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Be happy to answer questions. And I know our panelists would be too. So please feel free to engage with all of us, shoot out notes and connect the dots. And we'll look forward to chatting with you all soon. But thanks for joining today. Good to have you guys, and we'll chat soon.